wondering what my life means now. Am I still guard-captain of Altipaceda? Can I rebuild the guard, with so many of them gone? Will the king even allow it after we failed to protect the prince?
Estrada reached to touch his arm, let her fingers hang there for a moment.
Maybe you're expecting too much of yourself. You've been through a lot, Lunto.
Maybe if I'd expected more of myself, he said, it wouldn't have come to this. Maybe if I'd done my job, I wouldn't need to go and tell the king his son has been murdered.
And if you hadn't intervened, Moradrid might have murdered the king himself by now. You saved the crown.
Alvantes started at that, as though she'd struck an unexpected nerve.
You did everything you could, Estrada went on, apparently not noticing. Even the king has to understand that. As for the rest, just give it time, will you? Let yourself heal.
Of course. Thank you, Marina.
Alvantes made an effort to sound like he meant it. If it didn't fool me, it certainly wouldn't fool Estrada. Nevertheless, she let her mount fall back, leaving him to his despondency. Poor stubborn Alvantes. Of all of us, save perhaps Saltlick, he'd suffered most from Moradrid's brief, bloody visit to the Castaval. Now the man was too damn noble to realize he'd won. I didn't know whether I felt more like slapping him or giving him a manly hug. If I attempted either, he'd undoubtedly break my arm, so I settled for the third option of trying my best to ignore him. My plan to travel on with him to notify the king of his son's death was already beginning to seem absurd. Why subject myself to Alvantes' dismal company when my world was so full of options? With most of its leadership dead in the battle against Moradrid, the Castaval would be in chaos for months. I doubted anyone would be too concerned with my past indiscretions. For the first time since I'd learned to walk upright, I had a clean slate.
No more being told what to do for either of us, I said,
picking up my conversation with Saltlick where I'd left it.
Especially not you. You can rescue your friends and go home the conquering hero.
I glanced once more at Alvantes and Estrada.
Women go crazy for heroes. You can find yourself a pretty giantess and settle down. There are pretty giantesses, right?
Saltlick nodded bashfully.
Hey, don't look like that. You should have more confidence.
I studied his features for some compliment-worthy trait. The general impression was of a knobbly milk-white turnip. The best I could say was that it was basically proportional, and I wasn't convinced that would do much to bolster his self-esteem.
You have a good heart, I finished weakly.
Women like that, too. It was enough to bring back his smile, at any rate. My stock of compliments exhausted, I finished with an amiable pat to Saltlick's wrist, the only part of his arm I could comfortably reach, and returned my attention to the rambunctious troops. The irregulars had moved on to a song I knew, The Farmer's Other Donkey, while the Altipasedans were countering with another deafening march. Singing over each other at the tops of their voices, all but blocking the road, they were quite a spectacle. The thought reminded me of something that had troubled me vaguely since we'd started back towards Altipaceda. This was the less commonly used route to the southeastern Castaval, relegated to a back road by the grand stone bridge, known as the Sabre, that the Altipasedans had constructed. Even taking that fact into account, I'd have expected more traffic than we'd seen. Not a soul had passed us. No one had stopped to gawp at the column of armed men blocking the road from verge to verge. Even for a back road, that was curious. More, I couldn't deny that it made me a touch uneasy. With Moradrid dead, and his surviving troops scattered, shouldn't everything be returning to normal? A black-edged cloud drifted over the sun. I cursed beneath my breath.
Things were looking up for Easie Damasco, I muttered.
At that moment, the road crested a low rise, and for the first time our objective revealed herself. Altipaceda, greatest and only city of the Castaval, lay across the northward horizon like a drunken hussy.